here. The vast majority of human labor is done for selfish reasons. And you might think, no, people aren't totally selfish in everything they do. I don't think Solomon's saying that people are totally, like every single thing comes from 100% a place of envy. I think what Solomon is saying is that in no place can you see a human whose motives are ultimately pure, who is doing something without any contaminating element of envy in it. Let me give an example. Say in the area of fitness, why do people work out? To be stronger than who? It's the question, right? And you might think, now here, listen, I was thinking about this just this morning while we were singing songs because I was holding my daughter and I thought, here's a good reason to work out. You know, there's a goodness. There's a good reason to be strong, to be as healthy as I can be, right? And what's that good reason? Well, there's different ways to say it. But here, this morning, the example is because, look, I can hold my daughter up to sing songs of worship to Jesus. There's a good use of a decent amount of muscle, yes? But they're so twisty, right? It's so twisted because what's the other side of why do you work out? Because other people work out, and I don't look as good as they do. And I'm not as strong as they are. And so creeping up in my soul, if I'm honest with myself, is that there's some envy too. Why go do that? For a noble purpose, that's why. So I can be strong and keep up with my family and be active and be useful to the Lord for as long as I can. And that's why I want to be physically healthy. And also I want to be stronger than the next guy. And every person, I think Solomon's saying, he's like, there's no one out there whose motives are actually pure. Everybody's skill and work. How about in economics? Why do you work a job? Because I don't want to be poorer than the next guy. And you think, no, that's not all of why I work a job. And I don't think that's all of why you work a job. But somewhere lurking in the confines of your heart, I think God knows this. I think Solomon could see this. I think the Bible says this, that lurking in the inner recesses of your heart is a comparison game that you are immediately at any time ready to play with anybody around you. And this comparison game that we have can cause all kinds of nasty things. It can cause the schadenfreude, not in a political sense, in an economic sense. Have you ever been angling for a promotion and then somebody else gets it? And you can't stand that they've experienced a success that you wanted? Or on the flip side of that, have you ever been in a workplace and you've got kind of a little bit of a rival in the workplace, that there's a promotion coming up and you're kind of both in the running for it? And then bam, something happens to that other guy, and because you're in the comparison game, you rejoice in their suffering. Now, maybe you didn't cause it. Maybe you did. Maybe you outright sabotaged somebody else. Or maybe you didn't. And just the wheel of fate dealt them a bad hand, and it results in you getting ahead. And you rejoice that they've failed. There's a big problem in the workplace that we see, of course, today. And it's this question: how do we get employees in the business world to derive more from their job than just a paycheck? Because that's like at the core of it, right? There's nothing wrong with a paycheck, but we also know that if the only thing a person comes to work for is a paycheck, do you think that their performance can be better or worse than somebody who comes because they actually love the job, that they derive fulfillment from the job? What do you think? Yeah. Fulfillment from the job is going to be better than just coming for the paycheck. But how do we do that? We just know oftentimes people aren't even truly invested in their job. Our life is just transactional. I've had people over the years tell me, you know, dogs, they're just purely transactional beings, right? They only do what they do to get paid. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Are not people like that too? Are people materially different in the way they deal with one another? Is there not some element at all times under the sun, says Solomon? People are transactional. And the answer, he says, okay, the answer is not just to stop striving and stop working. You see all these nasty motivations in how people work, in what they put their labor to. And you might think then, well, then just disengage from it entirely. And Solomon says, no, don't do that. He says the person who folds their hands, right, that's the person who doesn't work. He says they'll eat their own flesh. What's that meaning? The person who won't work will have nothing to eat, in which case he will have to resort to self-cannibalism. Right? If you don't work and you can't buy bread, then you'll just start eating your fingers. It's an extreme picture to make a vivid point. But on the other side of that, Solomon says, the business of two hands full of toil isn't good either. And that's why he says, better is one hand full of quiet than two hands of toil. What's he saying there? Well, he's trying to navigate between two extremes, and he's trying to give you some practical advice to live your life under the sun. He says, on the one hand, if you're constantly striving after the comparison game, then you're going to be grasping at things double-fisted. You're trying to get everything, and you're going to be anxious, toiling for something you can never attain. And he says, that's not good. And on the other side, you just quit life altogether, and that's not good. So what's good then? One hand. Enough. Enough. Rest. Be at peace. Work. Labor. Strive. Do not fall to the trap of envy and greed that will put you into an endless rat race of comparison with other people.